For this project, you're going to be making three identical of something. So you're going to be either making three identical bowls or three identical mugs. I will leave that up to you. So we're going to practice this just because this is the next level up. And I want you to really practice trying to make similar things, not only when you're forming it, but when you're trimming it and designing it as well. So this is a common practice for people who do pottery for a living. So people who might sell it at Etsy or at shops or have their own studio, they are going to make multiple of the same item so that they can sell it to their consumers. When you are wheel throwing, your process is going to be identical based on whether you're making mugs or bowls. You'll just either be making a bowl or be making a cylinder. So what I want you to do first is you're going to weigh out 5 balls of clay that are identical, and then you're going to throw the first of your three projects. When you do this, I want you to get whatever shape you want. So whether you want it to be a slightly adapted mug, or whether you want it to be a ramen bowl, or whether you want it to be just a bowl that you use for soup, or whatever you want to make, you're going to make your first one of this. You're going to measure the height and the width. You need to do this after you're done making it because it will start to dry. As it starts to dry, it will start to shrink and then they won't be identical anymore. So I want you to practice using a caliper as well. And I'm going to find a video on how to use one, or I'm going to make a video on how to make one that I haven't done yet, so that you can get the identical rim shape on all of them. And that is to come. After you do that, you're going to basically mimic what you did before. So you're going to wheel throw, you are going to get the exact shape and form that you have of your first one, and you're going to measure it to make sure that it's the same. It does need to be the same height and the same width as your original measurements. You're going to create 5. So I know 5 seems like a lot when you're only going to be graded on 3, but while you're making it and you're in the swing of making the same thing over and over again, it's good to just knock out 5 because you might mess up when you're trimming. So you need to have backups. When you're trimming the process, make sure that trimming your projects, make sure that you're following the similar motions so that all of your projects are identical. All of them should be identical in shape, and all of them should be identical with like the foot rings and anything else that you may be adding. You're going to have 2 different options on your designs that you can include. I'm going to put pictures on here in a little bit. You can either design using underglaze that are either exactly replicated from project to project, or underglaze the projects differently but follow the same theme, or you can choose to add texture to it. So your options with the underglaze, you can either choose to do the same. So the example of the lizards are both the same on both mugs, and then it's glazed the same way. You're going to be using underglaze for the exterior, and then high fire glazes for the interior. So you're going to apply the underglaze when it's leather hard, probably right after you trim it, and then it's going to get fired, and then you're going to apply the high fire glaze to the rim of their bowls or mugs, and then the interior. If you choose this first option, it's going to be the same on every single thing. So if you put a lizard on one, you're going to put a lizard on all 3 of your mugs. That's option 1. Option number 2 is to have different designs but with the same theme. So the example that I have here is of different flowers. So these are 2 bowls. I know they aren't the same size. Imagine that they are the same size. They're underglazed. They're underglazed both flowers, but they're different types of flowers. So another thing that you could do is like if you want to do types of freshwater fish, you're going to have one type of fish on one and a different type of fish on the other. Or if you want to do just floral patterns, have similar floral patterns on both, make them look like they go together because it is a series, but they can have different designs and different patterns on them. So this is what it might look like if it's identical. So we have strawberries replicated on both. Flamingos are on both of the mugs that you see there. We have the same ghosts on the same mugs. We have the same types of leaves on the same mugs. It's all identical. It's copied paste. So it's meant to look like you just put it into, oh my gosh, and replicated. You just replicated it 3 times. You can also do the same theme. So with the same theme, it can be the same thing, but done in a different way. So a good example of this would be the raccoon. So it would be 3 different versions of a raccoon. You can have it. The face, you can have multiple little raccoons on another one, or you can have a full body one on the other one. Don't really care. Another example that I found off of Etsy is one who did the same type of floral designs. So she chose to do 3 different types of designs of like an English garden, a tulip field, and then a poppy field. Those are different ones. Another example, if you like more of like the ramen bowl type patterns, as example of this. I do want yours to be on the exterior, not on the interior of your bowls, but it's the same blue floral pattern. They're different patterns, but they all look like they would go together. And same thing with this floral pattern. They all have the same design and the same style to them. That is option number 1 for designs. So you can either glaze, or I'm going to give you the option to do texture. So you can create texture or you can create patterns by using the Sgraffito method by just carving into it when it's leather hard. When you do this, I don't want you to carve in deep, and I want it to be smooth out. I don't want your edges to be real sharp, so it shouldn't have any excess of clay coming out. So that when you're actually using these, you don't get cut by the glaze, because that wouldn't make your day good. So you can create texture or designs by carving your projects while they're leather hard. Do this after you're trimming. The texture design has to be consistent across all 3 projects. One can't be different from the next. When you're using these, you're just going to be using high fire glazes after it's been fired one time, and the glaze needs to be similar. So not like this option with the leaves here. That was just a cool example of what texture might look like. Here are a few other examples. So it's a pattern repeated over and over. When you choose this one, it needs to be consistent throughout the entire project. You can see that it's also not carved in too deep into the project. This one looks a little bit more unified. It looks a little bit classier, and it could have some cool reactions with the glazing. Like we see this blue one has some cool reactions with the texture on the glaze, and then this one too. Requirements. So if you chose to make 3 mugs, your mugs must be at least 6 inches by 3 inches when it's first thrown. All 3 of them need to do that. It must have a slightly adapted shape, no plain cylinders. So you're going to adapt this shape in some way, shape, or form after you're done throwing it. So the base might be a little bit bigger, the rim might be a little bit smaller. We've worked around with mug shapes a little bit before. You're going to slightly adapt it. It must have a foot rim. It must have a pulled handle, so you can't use coils, you can't use slabs, you must pull the handles. And then, as always, you must have even walls, no excess clay at the base, and then it needs to be light once it's fired, so it can't be a heavy project, it needs to be a lighter project. The requirements for the bowls are somewhat similar. They must be 4 inches tall by 7 inches wide when first thrown. It must be slightly adapted, so you can add a lip to the rim. You can adapt the shape a little bit more to make it a little bit more interesting. No plain bowls. You must have a foot rim. You aren't going to have a handle. I don't know why that's there. You must have even walls, no excess clay at the base, and they must be light when it's fired. I guess if you want to add a little handle to a bowl, you can. That's up to you. If you're choosing to underglaze your projects with designs, these are your requirements. So your designs must be done using underglaze, or you can do Sgraffito too. So you can do a little bit of both here. Your designs must be elaborate or textural. So no just plain stripes, no plain polka dots. Actually think this through. Your designs must be consistent through the entire project. So the entire one project that you make, 1 out of the 3, must be consistent. The underglaze must be applied properly. Your high fire glaze must be mixed and applied properly once it's been fired one time. And your glazing must be either the same theme throughout or be identical. So that's what I talked about earlier. If you're choosing to add texture, you must have a detailed texture or pattern that is carved. So you are carving it in using the loop tools or using the silicone modeling tools. It must be consistent across the project, so all of your projects must be identical. It must be smooth, no jagged edges that are going to cut you once it's been fired. You must fill at least half of the project, so you don't need texture throughout the entire project, but it must fill at least half. The high fire glaze must be mixed and applied properly, and I don't want you to apply glaze to the bottom half inch of the mug or bowl to prevent dripping. This is what I was talking about before. If you want to see how to adapt your mugs or bowls a little bit more, this is a video if you need to have a refresher on how to do a handle, different types of handles, or how to attach one. These are different handle shapes if you want to reference that. These are some different shapes you can choose to do if you do a mug with different handle shapes as well. This is that thing except wheel thrown. This is different types of handles. We're going to be doing the pulled ones, which I believe are these four right there. And these are the handles when they're applied. So those are all just things that you can reference if you need to reference.